great. You?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, for taking the time out of your day to attend our event. My name is Mark Fleming. I'm President and CEO of Conservatives for Clean Energy. We are an organization doing work in North Carolina and Virginia. We were founded to do work in North Carolina. We've now grown to Virginia and now looking at other areas of expansion in the Southeast. But we do Conservatives for Clean Energy, founded in 2014 to promote policy conversations around solar, wind, and energy efficiency in the Southeast. And this event today on energy efficiency is something that is near and dear to our hearts as conservatives, saving money and doing the right thing all at the same time. So we are excited about our event today and to learn more about energy efficiency. To begin our program, I'm going to ask Brandon Peck from Flywheel Government Solutions to give us a federal update. Brandon is a director with Flywheel. Does a lot of work in North Carolina. His clients include the U.S. Green Business Council and Johnson Controls, among others, and has done a good amount of work in North Carolina. And we have asked Brandon to come tell us a little bit about our co-sponsoring organization, CREE, Forum, Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions, and give us an update on what's going on the clean energy world in D.C. After Brandon, I'll introduce Representative Szoka, who will introduce Lieutenant Governor and our panelists today. So, Brandon.
Thank you, Mark. Good to be with you all. Thank you for hosting. My name is Brandon Peck with Flywheel Government Solutions, and as Mark noted, I work with a number of clean energy organizations, be it trade associations or companies, and we are located in D.C. To tell you a little bit about CREE, Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions, CREE was founded with the mission of elevating the dialogue around energy efficiency, clean energy, distributed energy storage amongst Republicans. It started at the federal level and it's trickled down to the states because CREE also believes that energy policy should be crafted in mind with an intergovernmental focus. So, CREE's mission is really to excite and entice Republicans to focus more on clean energy policy that is free market driven, that encourages investment, and we're certainly seeing a lot of expansion in a number of red states. In fact, the majority of the most renewable energy concentration is in traditional red states, whether it be wind, solar, geothermal, or other technologies. So that's a little bit about CREE. In terms of what's happening in D.C., contrary to a lot of what the media is saying, the administration and the Congress is actually taking some pretty proactive steps to elevate renewable energy or acknowledge the market investment that's going towards renewable energy. About $6 billion a year going into renewable energy markets, be it energy storage, distributed generation, wind, solar, and now things like carbon capture and storage. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, as you probably well know, preserved the investment tax credit and the production tax credit for solar and wind respectively. And the Bipartisan Budget Act recently passed actually acknowledged the extension of those two extenders as well, and included a non-solar ITC in there as well for geothermal, small wind, and some other energy technologies. One of the leading pieces of legislation that's not getting as much buzz in the media is really the MLP Parity Act. And you're starting to see in D.C. a lot of grassroots organizations on the center right gravitating to legislation like the MLP Parity Act that says, if oil and gas and all these other energy companies can have MLP status, why can't renewable developers? It's not a level playing field. And CREE is all about level playing fields, free markets, and so we're getting involved in those dialogues and trying to engage state stakeholders and other grassroots stakeholders to elevate those types of policies beyond the extenders extensions. And the industry has agreed contrary to what some say, they've agreed to a sunset on a lot of these credits, and CREE believes that no form of energy should be subsidized forever. The training wheels should come off at some point, and the market should be able to survive. And so if you look at the evolution of coal and oil and gas and now renewable energy and the maturation of those technologies, industry is acknowledging that phase out. And so we're proud of the work we've done and the dialogue that we've had in a number of state capitals. We were in South Carolina a couple weeks ago. We've done events in Maryland and generating a lot of traction around policy and dialogue with respect to renewables that we didn't necessarily see prior to the creation of this organization. So, and we've been fortunate enough to partner with organizations like Conservatives for Clean Energy and other stakeholder groups in the states that are interested in aligning with CREE's mission and elevating renewable energy discussion. So that's kind of the federal update in terms of what's going on in D.C. Obviously, with Congress out right now, it's calm. Things are calm. But the administration is working pretty closely with the Congress on things like the MLB Parity Act and public-private partnership type legislation that I think we'll hear a lot more about. Representative Kramer from North Dakota is trying to work energy into the infrastructure discussion as well. So I think the more energy gets inserted into the dialogue there with P3, the more you'll hear about renewables and the investment around renewables and what the private sector wants to see. So thank you for having me, and I'm happy to take questions later at the appropriate time.
Thank you very much, Brandon. I appreciate that. And a couple of housekeeping things. We scheduled to have 3 panelists, and we had one panelist who is not well and fell ill. Will Johnson is not able to be with us, but we have 2 other outstanding panelists that the Lieutenant Governor will introduce in just a moment. I'd like to recognize also with us here Stu Miller from our Conservatives for Clean Energy Board of Directors. Stu, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. So at this time, I will introduce Representative John Szoka, a man who needs no introduction in clean energy circles. Representative Szoka represents Cumberland County in the State House, the Fayetteville area, Fort Bragg, and is an outstanding spokesperson for clean energy, not just in North Carolina, but around the country. It's amazing when I go anywhere in the other parts of the country, they'll say, you guys have that state representative who's so knowledgeable on clean energy. And I'll say, Representative Szoka, yes, that's him. So we appreciate that. Representative Szoka shepherded through House Bill 589, which was the bipartisan consensus energy legislation that passed the House and Senate and signed by the governor in 2017. He was instrumental in making that happen. And we are happy to have him here today to introduce Lieutenant Governor Forrest. So join with me in welcoming Representative Szoka.
You're much too kind in your introduction. Thank you very much. It really is great to be here today and to see old friends and made some new friends here today. I know we have some really great speakers. And for once, I am very pleased to not have to talk about House Bill 589. That is really a thrill to me today. We're here to talk about energy efficiency, which oftentimes we forget how important that is. It's not just how you generate it, it's what do you do with it when you get it. And I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion on that. And I could say exactly what you said. The man I'm here to introduce actually needs no introduction. Our Lieutenant Governor, you can always find him where there's a major issue to be worked on, something that's moving the state forward, whether it's energy, whether it's rural broadband, or any of the other immense issues that the Lieutenant Governor tackles, along with his able staff. I might mention some of them are here today as well. We all know that he's the chairman of the state's Energy Policy Council that helps provide direction for the state in energy policy. And it's my distinct pleasure to introduce a man who needs no introduction, our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forrest. Thank you.
Thank you all. It really is good to be here, and it's great to see that we have at least 30 conservatives supporting clean energy with us. That's a joke. There's a lot more, obviously, who are not here. But welcome to London. It's a beautiful day in London town. We can see quite a ways here. I hear it's supposed to be 75 degrees today and sunny, and snow on Saturday, right? So you never know what you're going to get. But listen, this is such a broad topic. It's one I'm excited about. I think when we talk about clean energy, this is one of those issues that I think we should all be behind. I can't, for the life of me, figure out why anybody wouldn't be in favor of clean energy, yet there's a lot of politics that gets involved in this, and then a lot of misinformation that gets kicked around as to why people join sides on this issue. But the issue of clean energy is one that's before us. A little known fact for the world. I know this crowd knows it, but North Carolina is second in the country in solar energy. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. Second behind California. I think we'd all expect California to be number one, but maybe we'd expect Arizona to be number two, and North Carolina is right now, and so we want to keep up. If I'm messing up your microphone back there, sorry, I've hit it twice already. Just let me know if I move it out of the way. But it's something we need to keep the momentum up on, and because when I started this role as Lieutenant Governor, we were producing about 1% of our energy came from solar at the time. And it was hard to go out and tell people we need to keep pursuing innovation in solar and at the same time say, well, it produces 1% of our energy. And now we're at 4%. Just a few years later, here we are at 4% of our energy, and we see continued growth there. North Carolina is still a good state for solar, so we're seeing growth in that sector. So when we talk about clean energy, there's a lot of things that fall under that umbrella of clean energy, and we should all be supporters of that. My background, as many people know, is architecture. I was an architect for some 20-some years, and you mentioned USGBC being one of your clients, and I was a lead accredited architect at the time. And back then, it was a brand new thing. This whole issue related to energy efficiency in buildings and sustainability and everything else was kind of a brand new topic. And we were charting the course out there, and my company was one of the first fully lead companies in North Carolina, and that was something we took great pride in. But related to that, I know we have some folks in this room that are supporters of energy efficiency, building energy efficiency and performance contracting and that sort of thing. We have I believe, some real low-hanging fruit here in North Carolina that we can take advantage of that we're not taking advantage of. Performance contracting in our state, and we'll probably have some discussion about that today. I don't know if or we can talk about that with Ingersoll Rand's perspective. And it's a way to get the state engaged in energy efficiency that will have dividends that pay off immediately. Some things are long term and people don't see them, and some are immediate, and that's one that is certainly immediate. So I'm hoping to continue the push for that as well in the state. And so we have a lot of those types of opportunities out there. But we live in a great state. We all choose to call North Carolina home for a lot of reasons. And along with that comes significant growth. And so we've seen that growth all around us. If any of you travel the state like I travel the state and you're on the road every day, just over the last 5 years, you've seen how the roads are becoming more and more and more congested. Well, when you create 6,000 jobs a month in the state, like we've been doing year over year, you're going to find out that you have infrastructure challenges. Roads are one of those infrastructure challenges, as Representative Szoka said. I believe high-speed broadband to rural connectivity is another one of those challenges, but one that's equally as important, and probably the most important of all, is energy, and making sure that the infrastructure of energy is protected in our state so that we have low-cost, reliable, abundant energy. That's what separates first-world countries from third-world countries. That's what makes America great. One of the things that makes America great is that abundant, reliable, low-cost energy. We have companies that have been moving to North Carolina for some time from other places, from third world countries, from places, well, even like India, where many of our textile jobs went away. They're moving back to places like North Carolina because of low-cost, abundant, reliable energy. When they turn the lights on, they know they're going to come on. When they crank up their factory, they know it's good. The machines are going to run, and they're not just going to turn off indiscriminately at any given time. And so people will come to North Carolina for such things. And so we're a great energy state. One of the things I have the opportunity and privilege to do is chair the Energy Policy Council of Carolina, and we look at all forms of energy, and we bring people together to have real honest and transparent dialogue about those things. And was mentioned earlier, when you allow the free market to do its job, when you allow people to invest in the things that really make sense, they're going to do their job. It's going to work. It's going to work effectively. But there are places where policy needs to be engaged, and that's why we have some representatives with us here today, Representative Szoka, Representative Tart, or Senator Tart. Sorry, I gave you a demotion, sending you to the House. Sorry about that. Sending you over the dark side. But that's why they're here today, because they know the importance of policy in this game. And politicians can get engaged in things, and we can either make them better, or we can screw them up. And so you're engaged here with this because you know that the role we play is important, and you know that unless you kind of engage us and let us know what's important to you as an industry, then we may not know those facts. So with that, we have some esteemed guests with us today. And I'm going to introduce them. We're going to allow them to talk for some 10, 15 minutes. We're missing a panelist, so you guys can go a little long if you choose to, and then we will do Q&A afterwards. I was thinking about when I was going to introduce Greg Merritt with CREE, I was thinking that 10 years ago, many of you may have been with me in this, but 10 years or so ago, I don't know how long you've been doing this, Greg, but I remember when LED light bulbs came out, and I remember when the discussion was happening about incandescent light bulbs and legislation taking place to get rid of incandescent light bulbs. I was thinking, do not take my incandescent light bulbs. LED light bulbs suck, and they're like, they look like a hospital room, and you're sitting there in this institutional lighting, and I'm like, don't do that. I can't stand that lighting. Well, for the last 6 or 7 years, my house has been full of LED light bulbs. Every light bulb in my home has been an LED bulb. I wouldn't even buy a house today unless all my fixtures were LED fixtures. Not just the light quality is better, but it saves me tons of money on the cost of lighting too. It doesn't put out heat. It doesn't make my house hotter. And the innovation that has happened within the LED world, within the light bulb world alone, is really not too dissimilar from the innovation that's happened in the smartphone industry. I mean, you look at what's happened with the smartphone and how it's transformed the world in 10 years. Just the iPhone is 10 years old. I mean, that is really pretty unbelievable. And the same thing is happening with LED lighting. Believe it or not, the same thing's happening with solar, and the same thing's happening with wind. The same thing is happening with battery storage capacity with these products. So innovation is important, and continuing the course is important. And that's why we invited Greg Merritt with us. Greg, raise your hand so everybody can see you here. Greg is the Vice President of Marketing and Public Affairs at CREE, and since joining CREE in March of 2006, he has defined the LED market while executing corporate marketing, branding, and promotion. And we're going to hear from Greg in a second. And we also have with us Jeff Moe. Jeff, raise your hand. There you are. Is the Global Director of Energy Policy and Advocacy for Ingersoll Rand. And Jeff directs the company's energy leadership and develops market segment advocacy strategies related to energy efficiency and sustainability related developments. And so we're going to allow these gentlemen some time to speak. We will have some Q&A, and then we will have some lunch as well. And so it's my pleasure to introduce these gentlemen to you. And I'm not sure how you've arranged the slide deck here, but whoever's first gets to go first, and we'll give you that opportunity. So welcome our panelists, please.
As I age, my notes gets more, so please bear with me. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's really wonderful to be able to talk to you all about something that's near and dear to our heart. And part of the passion that I have for this, it's really a win all around. This whole energy efficiency thing is really beneficial for the country, for the state, for jobs, for businesses, for all of that. And I'll talk a little bit more. For those that don't know Ingersoll Rand, we're a global diversified manufacturing business, 48,000 people, 26,000 of those in the U.S. We have 3,000 people in North Carolina, including our corporate center down in Davidson. So North Carolina is very close to our hearts. We're right in the middle of it, and we really enjoy the privilege of being here in this state. A little bit about our businesses. Trane air conditioning, residential and commercial air conditioning products. We have Thermo King transport refrigeration, global leader in that segment. We have industrial businesses such as our air compressor business, materials handling, power tools, fluid handling, and then Club Car is one of our business. Just a smidgen of golf in North Carolina, so we're the largest golf cart producer in the world, but we're also investing in low-speed consumer and utility vehicles. What I thought I would do, though, is start with a little bit of context on the national front. So let me share some data. And if I step off to the side, I think you can still hear me, and because I can speak real loud. But if we go to the next slide here, I have some really good news. I think there's a clicker. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect.
Just hand it to him.
Oh. All right, so I was talking to myself, I guess. So this data comes from the Sustainable Energy in America Fact Book. This was put on by Bloomberg New Energy Finance and the Business Council for Sustainable Energy. We use this a lot in our advocacy work because we want to start with the facts, right? We want to talk with facts. We want to talk with jobs. We want to talk with savings. This first one is really good news. As you can see, this is energy productivity. This is how do we get more for the same, or in this case, less. So it's good news that we're seeing the energy productivity driving up so fast. What's even better news than that, starting in about 2010, for the first time, we've actually delinked economic growth and energy use. We've actually seen energy consumption go down a bit as the economy continues to drive up. Very important. The last point is in the last bullet point that nobody can read. Basically what Lawrence Berkeley National Lab is saying is the cost of delivering energy efficiency solutions is dropping significantly, 36% from 2009 to 2013. So not only are we seeing really good progress on the energy productivity part, but one of the biggest engines of this progress, energy efficiency, is actually reducing in cost, which is making the financial returns more attractive, which means more people want to do it, we create more jobs, it just builds on itself. The main point of this slide is within all this, in the power sector, we're seeing even more significant reduction in demand as the economy is growing. In fact, in the last decade, it's actually dropped 7% as it's going up. So energy productivity from an electrical standpoint is even better news than what we just saw. From a consumer standpoint, we are now spending the smallest share of our income on energy than we have in over 60 years, right? So it's really beneficial for all of us. We're reaping the benefits of all these trends. But it's not just about costs. The other thing that's exciting here, this is a fairly busy slide. It looks at different sectors of clean energy. And this is very apropos for North Carolina because of Lieutenant Government's discussion about the investments we have in clean energy here. Energy efficiency contributes 2.2 million jobs. Okay? And these are not jobs in a single big building, that these are dispersed across the entire economy. It's my business that's creating jobs. It's my channel partners that are creating jobs. It's your neighbors that are in construction, that are in maintenance, that are putting these together. It's pervasive. It's very broad. It's extremely healthy job creation. And then lastly, it's to show that we're seeing continued increasing investment in energy efficiency, which once again suggests that the progress we've seen on energy productivity is going to continue to increase, albeit at a faster pace. So let me pass through those. And I want to share a little bit more context about Ingersoll Rand and why we're doing what we're doing, and then I'll get to performance contracting at the end. Ingersoll Rand has integrated sustainability and business strategy, and we've done that so we can identify global issues, not just identify them, but learn to address them. A couple of the biggest ones for us is globally the unsustainable growth in energy demand, especially in developing countries, but also climate change. Now, why are we doing that? Okay, how many people think businesses are environmentalists? Okay, we are not. Okay, we're doing this because it drives profitable growth. We also have investors that are asking questions about risk. So when we look internally at the sustainability areas, we're doing that because this is material to investors. Plus, our customers want these new solutions. They're attractive financial returns for our customers. So this is why we continue to drive in this area. To help transform our business even faster, though, we've created a public, transparent climate commitment in basically 3 areas. We're going to reduce the greenhouse gas footprint of our refrigerants portfolio 50% by 2020. We're going to invest $500 million in R&D to create new products to help with that transition. And lastly, because of costs and because of material risk potential, we're looking internally, we're going to reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions 35%, again, by 2020. As we go through the learnings and insights we get from that, it can lead to things such as a doubling down on investments in the energy services sector. Again, we're doing this because it's a growth engine for our business. And as we look at energy services, what we're seeing here in North Carolina is really exciting, right? And that's creating market for us, and so we're putting a disproportionate amount of our investments in this area. So for us, energy services are things like building management, things like performance contracting, things like energy efficient products and solutions, things like demand response solutions as we move to the 21st century grid, and distributed energy resources. So we can put in place energy producing non-utility scale services that are out there. So that's what this insight and this focus and this alignment of sustainability and strategy is leading us to. Let me shift a little bit over to performance contracting. In North Carolina, I think the first one was roughly 13 years ago, North Carolina, from a public standpoint, has implemented $400 million worth of performance contracting projects. We are one of the leaders in the state in that. We are not the entire $400 million, but this is quite significant. Let me talk a little bit more about performance contracting. Basically, performance contracts are projects where the recipient puts no capital up front. There are savings that create positive cash flow. The customer pays for the investment out of the savings. We commit and guarantee that you're going to get those savings. If we're wrong, you don't pay. It's fairly simple. There's no risk. Okay? The worst case scenario is the cash flow benefits you get equals the payments. So you get investment in new infrastructure for free, and there's no change in cash flow. Very typically, though, the cash flow benefits actually exceed the payments, so you have work that's done, improvements that are made on the infrastructure for nothing up front, and in many cases you actually get positive cash flow on top of all that. In addition, we have terms that can range from 10 to 30 years, depends on the scope of the project. At the end of 10 years, at the end of 30 years, at the end of those payments, all of the cash flow benefits continue in perpetuum, and it's a very, very beneficial way to do that. The good news is in Carolina, legislation enables this to happen. There's infrastructure in the government that can support this, that can support requests for proposals as this moves forward. And in my view, it's really policy that unleashes these opportunities for, in this case, the public sector. We also do some in private sector. The $400 million is public only. So let me kind of summarize this. So simplistically, think of this as the state avoiding $400 million of investment that is avoiding $400 million of taxpayer burden. For that, they get positive fiscal management of the government. We get infrastructure improved moving forward, and it's all done for no money up front. So all that sounds really, really good. It's even better. On top of that, what do we get? We get jobs. Okay, so it creates jobs in a very pervasive basis. Let me share just a couple examples. And I'm going to do a little bit of bookends from a time frame standpoint. The first energy saving performance contract that the North Carolina Department of Administration awarded was to our channel partner Brady. This is for the North Carolina Museum of Art. Okay, more than $1 billion worth of asset value of fine art. What we saw at the time when this first came up, humidity level fluctuated significantly over the years. It was stretching and pulling on the piece of artwork. Essentially, it was creating an unfortunate aging chamber for art. So what we did is we identified some opportunities. We were awarded this. Again, it was the first guaranteed energy savings contract that was made. The HVAC system was replaced. Lighting retrofits were done. Boiler replacements were done. Water conservation was done. At the end of this, and this was a $5 million project, at the end of this, the humidity fluctuations were down almost to nothing. The energy use was reduced by 60%, 60%. The savings was $40,000 a month. And so for a $5 million project, there was guaranteed annual savings of $572,000 a year. It was a 12-year contract term, so we're past the contract term. So those savings now, because there's no payment, are going to the bottom line. Okay, so we've kept the art. It's been very fiscally responsible, no money up front. And that was the first one that was done, $5 million. So let's look at another scale. Lieutenant Governor, you were talking about the infrastructure challenge. Okay, so about 3.5 years ago, there was a request for a proposal put out by the North Carolina DOT on a roadway lighting performance contract. A lot of work was done between then and middle of last year when a contract was awarded to us. The project scope of this were 10,689 new LED roadway lights. They replaced high-pressure sodium or mercury vapor technology. There was a GE light grid monitor that was put in place with cloud-based monitoring of the systems. We had 16,613 new LED lights that were installed in 805 buildings of the NCDOT. And we had $4,200,000 of roadway lighting infrastructure repairs. Now, the one thing I didn't talk about in performance contract is you want to do energy savings, water savings that can save you money. But a lot of times, those savings are beyond the payments. What this then allows you to do is invest in infrastructure upgrades. Many times, those infrastructure upgrades don't give you immediate returns on investment, but they have to be done. So if it's not in the budget, this is a non-budgetary way to get what needs to be done in a fiscally prudent fashion. Okay, from a scope standpoint, this was a $33 million contract. So the first one was $5 million. This one's $33 million, a little bit more pervasive. There's also a maintenance component to this, so it not only will fix the problems from day one, it'll maintain those like new from day one throughout the contract. And we're not even talking about the environmental benefits that come from this, because the primary thing is it's very fiscally responsible government with no money up front that provides, and if I remember correctly, this I think is the first state project like this. Okay, so it's very progressive work done, fiscal management by the state. I really commend the government for this in North Carolina. Thank you very much for it. It's good for all of us. So thank you for your time. Look forward to questions.
Thanks, Jeff. So I don't have all the pretty pictures Jeff does, so I'll just have to smile a lot, I guess. So good morning. Thanks very much for the invitation. I got a little frog in my throat. I'm very happy to be here to speak with you. I think most of you are familiar with, oh, thank you, that'll help. There you go. It's a good thing it's not gin. I think many of you are familiar with CREE. We've been here in Durham for 30 years, having been founded out of NC State back in 1987. And pretty much everything we do is related to energy efficiency. It really was the basis for the founding of the company and really is the basis of our business today. Over that time, we've grown from 6 people to over 6,000 people, about 2,500 of which are here in North Carolina. We heard Jeff outline the importance of energy efficiency to the national economy, including 2.2 million jobs. The estimates are that about 40,000 of those jobs are here in North Carolina. And you heard him talk a little bit about what kind of jobs these are. The interesting thing about it is they're local jobs, right? So these are engineering jobs, installation jobs, project management. It's not the type of thing you can outsource somewhere else, right? Because it has to happen here, where the installations are. Energy efficiency not only creates jobs directly through the manufacturing and installation of the products themselves, but it has really enabled a fundamental shift in the economy. And Jeff talked about this. I won't dwell on it. As the decoupling of GDP growth from energy consumption is a fundamental change, right? For decades and decades before, about 8 years ago, that was not the case, right? Energy went up as productivity went up. I think one point I want to make here is energy efficiency is the biggest part of that story, right? The fact that we are able to get more productivity out of either the same energy or less energy is really due to the energy efficiency improvements that have taken place there. And it also points up something else I want to make a point about. We talk about energy efficiency, and energy efficiency, I know some people in the room here will remember this, right, is Jimmy Carter in his sweater telling you to turn your thermostat down, right? Energy efficiency, to many of us, has to do with scrimping and saving and doing without, right? That's why you may have seen a change in the vernacular where now people are beginning to talk more about energy productivity, because the real outcome that we're searching for here is more productivity from the use of energy, not necessarily using less energy, right? If we use more energy and get more economic benefit from it, that's a good thing. So you may want to think about, as you hear about energy efficiency, think about what we're really talking about is energy productivity. So I think in recognition of this, and we talked about, or Jeff talked about some of the commitments his company has made. CREE joined a number of other global companies recently in committing to double our energy productivity by 2020 from a 2014 baseline. So why would you want to do that, right? If you could increase your productivity in any element of your business by a factor of 2, you're going to do it, right? I mean, it makes you more competitive. It makes your products lower cost. It makes your employees more productive. It's good for business. And I think I want to repeat one other thing he talked about. As we look at ways we're going to fuel our economic growth in this state, energy efficiency or energy productivity still remains the cheapest source of energy that we can tap. It is by far the cheapest, and the return on the investment is significant. In a world of somewhat flat energy growth and rapidly changing economics of energy generation, I think many of you have seen recent studies about how rapidly the economics of generation are changing, right, with solar and wind, combined heat and power, and also the sometimes increasing cost of fossil fuel. It starts to look wise for us to meet any gaps that we see between today's capabilities and tomorrow's needs by investing in energy efficiency. So let me talk a little bit about CREE. I think many of you are familiar with CREE as an LED company, an LED lighting company. Thank you for the business. And hopefully many more of you are enjoying the benefits of our products in your homes and offices. LED lighting, it really offers a straightforward way to reduce energy usage, increase energy efficiency. Over 50% of the energy used for lighting in commercial installations can be saved, and over 80% of the electricity used for lighting in most residential homes can be saved simply by replacing the lighting. Of course, it's simple from my perspective, right? And lighting today accounts for about 20% of our nation's electrical usage. Actually, it used to be 22%, but as more LEDs get deployed, that number comes down. However, even though it makes sense and saves all this energy, only recently did we pass 10% of the installed base in this country being LED. So we still have a long way to go, right? We're a tenth of the way there. So we can't take our foot off the pedal there. I want to talk a little bit, so most people are familiar with the lighting aspects of CREE, but we also develop and manufacture semiconductor technologies and products that are used in electrical power applications and wireless communications. So you talked about broadband in rural communities. And that might sound a little esoteric, so what does that mean, right? But where these technologies get used are in growing areas of applications such as electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging, computing power supplies, renewable energy generation, energy storage, as well as 4G and 5G wireless networks and other broadband wireless communications. So I mentioned about 20% of the electricity is used for lighting. So these technologies actually can help improve most of the other 80%. Because most of the other 80% of electricity in this country turns motors. Either turns motors or powers amplifiers. And both of those things we can improve with these technologies. The power and wireless efforts at CREE utilize a fundamental technology that was part of CREE's founding. Anybody here heard of silicon carbide? A couple people there. So silicon carbide, actually the technology to do high volume, low defect silicon carbide was developed at NC State by the founders of CREE and a few other people. And silicon carbide offers fundamental advantages over, most electronics are made out of silicon. Silicon carbide offers fundamental advantages in terms of performance and efficiency over silicon electronics. And by applying these technologies in many of those applications I mentioned, electric vehicles, renewable power, broadband communications, we can make the performance better, but also they can use fundamentally less energy. So those areas I mentioned, you can think of, they're pretty big growth areas, right? Those are places where a lot of investment is happening. There's a lot of potential. All of those areas are potentially very beneficial to the economy of the state. They're also areas of potential very large growth for CREE, and something we're paying a lot of attention to. To address this potential growth, we previously announced that we're spending about $220 million in capital this fiscal year. The vast majority of that is in North Carolina. We're doubling key capacities of many of our manufacturing area for silicon carbide materials as well as power devices, and anticipate growth well beyond that. We had an investor conference in New York last month where we laid out a growth pattern which almost quadruples that part of our business over the next 5 years. So you could understand, of course, that we're going to need to hire people to help us run these expanded facilities as well as carry out the other portions of our business. So I want to go back to lighting just for a second. We're also continuing to evolve our LED lighting capabilities, and this is going to touch on something I think is a key thing for us to consider when we look at policy going forward. We're putting a very large focus on what we call intelligent lighting. Maybe you heard of smart lighting in your home, but we tend to think of it as intelligent lighting for commercial spaces. So I mentioned that we can cut the electricity used for lighting in a commercial space by over 50% just by changing the lights. We can actually cut the electricity used for lighting by over 80% by adding intelligence to that system. And examples of this include, we can cut energy use by over 80%, but we can also deliver benefits that go well beyond just the lighting in the building. Many of you have heard of the Internet of Things. We're actually able to leverage connecting the lighting together with integrating it with a set of sensors and data analytics in a building so that we can not only adapt the lighting to what's going on in the building, but we can help adapt the other systems in the building. HVAC systems, other building systems. We can even help improve the utilization of the space. We actually have an example of this in our facility where we needed a new lab, and because we had equipped an entire building with this system, we were able to go in and look and say, well, which parts of this building aren't being used very often? And we were able to find enough space in the building to repurpose it without having to go equip a new lab. It saves us $60,000. If you think about that, that just paid for our electric bill for a long time, just by saving the space. Excuse me. So these type of capabilities highlight an emerging area of energy efficiency, which is that of system level efficiency. You know, a lot of our efforts to date have been in making individual products or individual appliances more efficient, right? You make your refrigerator more efficient, you make your light more efficient, make your air conditioner more efficient. I think, what's the stat? Let's see, our refrigerators today are 25% bigger and use 70% less energy than they did a couple decades ago. However, we're starting to see some diminishing returns in some technologies for how much farther we can push an individual element. There's still more to be done, but perhaps not the same kinds of gains. But if we start to look at the systems which comprise a number of these technologies and products, we can now look at improving the efficiency of the system. The intelligent lighting system I talked about is one example of that, but the same thing can be true, and you can actually look at an entire building. You can optimize the interaction of the people in the building with the systems that maintain the building to dramatically reduce the amount of energy that's consumed. So those are some of the biggest opportunities. However, measurement and regulation of these types of system level efficiencies and building level efficiencies is a little more complex than just figuring out how much electricity your refrigerator uses. So it presents some challenges for us as well as some opportunities. And I would say that's probably, if I was going to leave you with some parting comments, one of the areas that I think is a big opportunity for us as we look at policy is let's look at things that we can address on a building level or a system level as we start to look at improving efficiency. Thank you very much.
We are running a little tight on time, so we're actually going to jump into the Q&A part here. We're going to take a couple questions, and then we're going to allow everybody to have lunch and get back to making the world go around. But Greg, we'll start with you. Obviously, you hit on a lot of innovation there. A lot of things are going on in the innovation world. Certainly talking about intelligence. We know what you have done for the lighting world, but obviously you're developing a lot of new things. You hit on some of it, but just give us maybe a couple bullet points. What are the things that you see coming down the road from an innovation perspective that we need to be paying attention to? Maybe something that you didn't talk about here today related to technology advancements and the idea of how we attract those things to North Carolina. So maybe you could hit on a couple things for us.
Okay, sure. So I think there's a couple points I want to make quickly. One is we often think of efficiency around products that we use, in our lives and in our buildings, in our homes. We often don't think of energy efficiency in the infrastructure that helps sort of run our state and run our country. As we start to talk about upgrading infrastructure, the energy efficiency of that infrastructure is actually very important, and I'll use a couple of examples, right? So we expect that electric vehicle usage is going to increase, which means we're going to have to put charging infrastructure in. Depending upon the technology choices you make for that charging infrastructure, you can have very large differences in the efficiency. Both the efficiency of the charger itself, but also the efficiency with which it can charge the vehicle. So I think one of the areas of innovation that we should pay attention to is infrastructure efficiency. Mm-hmm. You may know that solar panels generate DC power. In order to use that on a grid, we have to convert it to AC, and if we're going to put it back in storage, we convert it back to DC, and if we're going to convert it back to AC, we convert it back to AC. And every time we do that, we lose energy. But there are technologies available that can reduce those losses by 4 to 6%. And if you do that every time, I just talked about 3 conversions, right? So that's 12 to 18% savings you could get. So I would say those are the areas of innovation I would ask us to pay attention to, is that infrastructure.
Great, thank you. I think one of the things that a lot of people forget about is you mentioned the Internet of Things as well, and the connectivity of everything, and everything's going to use power to be when it's connected. And it's not just having a smartphone that has a battery, but all of a sudden you have to plug that smartphone in to recharge it at night. You're obviously running data centers for all the data and that sort of thing. And so I think a lot of people have misconceptions regarding energy efficiency and kind of what the purpose of energy efficiency is. As you mentioned, it's not just about saving energy at home. It's not just about installing a smart thermostat or smart lighting, but it's a lot of different things combined. So, this is for either one of you who want to tackle this, or maybe both of you, but what are some of the common misconceptions that people may have about energy efficiency, and what do we need to do about it moving forward, about the conceptions?
I think the one misconception is that energy efficiency is expensive. Energy efficiency is something we have to do because Jimmy Carter told us to do that. And a word curtailment comes up. Curtailment essentially means getting something good by giving something up, right? And so we just showed a couple examples of numerous performance contracts that are out there where there wasn't anything that was given up. No money up front, savings that come in, and not just savings from conservation of energy, but savings that can be reinvested in infrastructure that financially doesn't pay back in the short term, but everyone knows it has to be done. When do you fix a road? When you fix a road, does that generate income day one? No. If you don't fix it, so you go through that. And so I think that's probably the main thing that we look at.
Well, if that's about all the time we have, I want to say thank you to our panelists for being here. Thank you, Representative Szoka, as well, Senator Tart, for joining us. Thank you for everybody else coming today, and please just join me in giving our panelists a hand.
Thank you very much to our panel, Representative Szoka. We also have Representative Sam Watford here, I saw, Senator Tart. We have John Adcock, who's running for State House in Southern Wake County as well. So thanks to everyone. Especially want to thank Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest for his leadership and for being here today. So thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor. And we want to especially say thanks to Emily Weeks from the North Carolina Republican Party for being here. Thank you very much, Emily. Upcoming, we have our poll luncheon on Wednesday, May 23rd. If you were on the list for this event, you will be on the invite list for that event. Will be held here upstairs at the City Club on Wednesday, May 23rd at lunch. So, with no further ado, I know there's an Energy Commission meeting at 1, so we were going to ask Lieutenant Governor Forrest, Representative Szoka, and Representative Watford, Senator Tart, all those who are part of that meeting to go first through the line, and Kinsley can help sort of describe how that's going to go. I want to say thanks to Kinsley, by the way. Dee Stewart, Kinsley Leonard, Ginevra Joyce Myers, the whole team at Strategic Partner Solutions for their help in setting this event up. So thank you very much. Yes, and our second poll luncheon, if you can't be a part of Wednesday, May the 23rd, will be in Charlotte on Friday, June 1st at the City Club in Charlotte with a poll presentation as well. It's our 2018 North Carolina Energy Poll. It'll be presented by Dee Stewart and Paul Shoemaker with Strategic Partner Solutions. So, Kinsley, on terms of lunch?
Sure. So we're just going to go through the buffet line in the 919 room. So you can just, if you're a member here or if you've been to the City Club before, you kind of know how that works. You can just walk straight down that